Good morning. My name is Lars, and I wanted to start doing regular uploads to this channel with regards to certain topics. And I wanted to go over each topic in each upload pertaining to um, the housing sector, the homelessness sector, and how I think that a lot of things need to change, and how I think that what is being allowed to roll out as is at the moment needs to be very, very carefully relooked at. I'm going to start off by talking about my own journey, my partner and I's journey, and then I'll go on to a different part of that journey that pertains to my son who has got disabilities. So the first part of this chat, I would like to mention about how the homelessness sector seems to be functioning at the moment. So the first section I want to talk about is what happens when you are put into a situation where you are going to have already been told that you are going to be put in the homelessness sector accommodation side of things. So basically, when you are in the position, there's a process which I'll talk about in a minute. But when you get to the part of that process where the council step in to give you a roof over your head, if you like, there's many things that can happen. So first of all, they have to deem whether you are unintentionally or intentionally homeless. This is a very important thing to remember and note. If the council class you as unintentionally homeless, they are responsible to ensure that they put some kind of a roof over your head. If they find you if they find you intentionally homeless, they then tell you they are not. They don't have to help you. Basically, they can wash their hands of you. So finding out that you are unintentionally homeless, let's go down that route first. If you are found as unintentionally homeless, basically you've to phone up the homelessness telephone number and they will get back to you, and they will then get somebody to phone you back. They take a note of what the situation is, and then they will try to find you someplace. Now, in my situation and my partner's situation, they basically found us a hotel sort of place. So the first place we ended up in was not great, but anyway, that's a whole other story. The second place we ended up in was because you can only sometimes be in a place for a couple of days, or some places you're only in an overnight. Depends on the way things are going. Well, in our situation, I think it was COP26 was on, so all the hotels, guest houses, bed and breakfast, everything like that were completely and utterly full. And the places that the council normally used to use were either full, or what I was told by somebody at I think it was the Premier Inn where we are locally, said that their manager stopped allowing people through the council to come and stay at their place because they'd had so much trouble. What level of trouble I don't know, but it got to the point where I believe that certain people that were coming in were disturbing their guests, so they had to make the decision to stop having people from the council be able to stay there, which is a shame because we stayed in that place a couple of nights because a family member paid for us to stay there a couple of nights while the council were trying to figure something out. and that's what we got told. We got told that when the council phoned them up, immediately they refused. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. So anyway, we were given a phone call late on a Friday evening. We were driving around in the car and they couldn't find anything. We were thinking we were going to have to spend the night in the car. So we'd kind of resigned ourselves to the fact that that might be the case when we got a phone call. And the phone call was telling us to make our way to a certain place, which we did. And it was a lovely guest house. And it was in the countryside a little bit. So we were kind of wary about what we were going to find. You know, was the place going to be okay? And we breathed a sigh of relief when we drove up to the place and found it to be a lovely place. And the people that ran the place were fantastic. I can't fault them. They were so sweet. They were so understanding. And when they showed us where we were going to be, my partner and I just kind of breathed a sigh of relief. Oh my gosh, you know, like we're not going to end up in an actual hovel. What the amount of places we'd been told people get sent. So we kind of breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, oh my gosh, we're fortunate. So we were able to stay in that place from November to the 1st of February. So from November 2021 to February the 1st, 2022. Now, when we first went there, they said we could only stay the weekend and we'd have to move on. We had a bit of savings, which was supposed to go towards a deposit when we eventually found somewhere. Well, after the weekend, they said, we're wanting to move you. The guy that was running the place came to the door and he said, the council want to move you. And they didn't want us to be moved either because they knew that I was recovering from 2 major surgeries, one of which was an emergency bowel surgery. I was not very physically well, and the thought on having been moved around and potentially ending up in a dodgy hotel was not something that I wanted to have to, deal with. So anyway, what happened was the council basically said you don't have a choice in the matter unless you can pay for it yourself. And if you can pay for it yourself, you can stay there until such time as we make the decision whether or not you can stay there a bit longer term based on looking into your case. So anyway, this is where it gets a bit messed up. We made the conscious decision to use some of our savings because I was ill and recovering from my surgeries, and I was very, very poorly and didn't have a lot of energy, and I needed facilities to be able to cook and eat and drink certain things based on my recovery from my bowel surgery. So anyway, the cut and dry of it was we went to the council through the people that ran the guest house and said we are prepared to use some of our savings until you look into our case further, which we did. So we spent quite a good portion of our savings for 2 weeks, I think it was, before they finally came back to us and said, okay, we'll pay for you to stay there. So that meant that we'd spent quite a bit of our savings by this point. So anyway, we stayed there and we were there over Christmas and past New Year, and then bearing in mind that they were still paying for it at this point, we eventually got told we were having to get shifted. Now, we didn't know where to. We got told that it was a unit, so it sounded okay, But when I looked it up online and I saw potentially what looked like to be where we were going to have to go, my heart sank. I don't know if anybody's been through a situation where they've had to have two major surgeries back to back within a few days of one another, how that affects you physically, how that affects your mental health, and overall it just totally knocks you for six. So I was able to kind of keep my physical and mental health on the up while at the guest house. We had depleted our savings by this point, and so it left us in the position of having no option then, because we had no savings left, and we had to do what the council said. We had to go where the council said. So this was February 2022. So what happened was, we got the phone call one morning, and the lovely person that ran the place, he came to the door and he says, "We've been told that the council said you're moving on today." We didn't know nothing about it. We suddenly got a phone call thereafter. I think it was about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, and said, "Can you get your stuff and come to here as soon as possible, please?" So we hadn't a choice, because like I say, we had no savings anymore, and we didn't have a choice but to kind of go where we were asked. So one of the people that was running the guest house, he didn't want us to go, and we didn't want to go, because we'd originally been told that we might be able to stay there until, even a temporary accommodation came about. Now, what they told us, the council, was that this place that we were going to was temporary accommodation, and that it was a homelessness unit. So, of course, we were a bit worried because we didn't know what that was going to be like. We had never been in this position before. So, anyway, we packed up and we went to where we were asked to go. And the building we signed into was a modern building. But on either side of the modern building, there were two big, massive blocks of flats, I guess you could say, older builds. Of flats, I believe they were from the 70s or something, but there were two older tower blocks, if you like, and they didn't look too promising, but we thought, we'll reserve judgment till we go in. And we got taken through the building we were signed in, and we got told we had like a process. We filled in forms. They told us what to do. They said what was expected and how we were to move forward, as in how we progressed to get ourselves permanent accommodation. And then I was allocated a personal support worker, I think it was called, and so was my partner. So mine was a lady and my partner's was a guy. And so they took us through the back and out into the stairwell of one of the high rises, if you like. And we went up to the third floor. Now, I was struggling to get up the stairs at this point because of the surgery. Mobility had been affected, but I managed to get up the stairs anyway. That's a whole other story. And basically, we got taken into the level we were going to be at, and she opened the door, and I could see it was kind of like a flat setup, and it could have been a lot worse than it was, in the respect of it didn't have mould in it, it didn't have anything dodgy like that, but it just felt so austere and so unpersonal. And she said, this is yours until such point as you find somewhere else, and your rent's paid for your housing benefit. You don't have to pay council tax when you're here. All you have to do is just try and get yourself moving forwards. We'll help you and support you, and I'll go into another part of how they further support you in the next part. So the next part I'm going to share with you is our experience of the place.